And good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to this week's scintillating episode of John with Jack. This week's guest is none other than DM Blackwall, the creator of Horde Wars and the forthcoming DropShip, and who can be found at blackwallgames.com. We'll be showing more links about that later. But thank you for joining us tonight, Todd.
Thanks for having me. We've been trying to get this to happen for a while. I think you had a health issue or something. We had something come up.
I got terribly sick at that time, with the worst flu I've had in years. This is us circling back around, and that was a few months ago, and it was. So I'm very glad. Thank you for being gracious about rescheduling and my confusion about the time slot today. That happens. Goblin scheduling. No and we got Ultra in the chat. Good to see you, sir. We're talking about setting up a Horde Wars game for Scudder for Mike.
Oh, that'd be great.
Yeah.
I've been trying to get him to play for like a year.
Oh, yeah. We're talking about it. He's excited. And Michael Dale is here. Always good to see you, sir. So now, my customary first question, Todd, is how did you get started in the hobby of RPGs?
Originally, I read a lot of history, played quite a few war games, got into some, and then some guys I played war games with invited me to come and play AD&D with them.
So you really started as a war gamer first and foremost. That's very rare. What time was that? Was that the 70s,
this was
60s?
Late. No, not that long ago. Late 90s, early 2000s.
Wow. See, so being a D&D nerd from way early back, the wargaming was completely ignored. We didn't even know that was still going on. We thought it had died off.
No,
what was the wargaming scene like then?
What was popular at the time was a pretty simple war game called Mage Knight. The company that bought out the company that bought out the company that made it, I think, something like that. There's a chain of purchasing. Is WizKids, which is the same company that makes HeroClix and that makes the miniatures for D&D and Pathfinder today. That company owns the rights to Mage Knight, and you might be familiar with the board game as well, which is kind of a throwback to the war game.
Right. Oh, I remember Mage Knight. I even have a couple of random pieces that made their way into my collection over the years, just because they're interesting pieces, and I use them as D&D figs. But
I do the same. Usually with a repaint, though, I've gotten much better as a painter than I was then, and the Mage Knight paint jobs, with a few exceptions, tend to be pretty bad.
I noticed the same thing. Well, more correctly, my wife noticed the same thing and repainted them when she got them. So they're Mage Knight figurines with sporting fresh paint. She does a good job with it.
Yeah. So that was how I got into the hobby. And then my parents found out what I was doing. This was Satanic Panic era, and we're like, no, you can't hang out with those friends anymore.
Even in the late 90s, you were feeling the Satanic Panic. Wow. Oh, yeah. See, I'm different. I grew up in New Jersey. It completely passed me by. The few people that brought up something like that, even as a little kid, I was able to say, "Oh no, it's just a game. There's nothing satanic. It's no more satanic than reading a book."
It was an ongoing, like even online, it was an ongoing argument, probably in the Midwest and the South, particularly, which tends to be the more Christian areas of the country, at least at the time.
That is true.
And so I wound up actually arguing often fairly successfully with some guys that no, that's not actually what this is. Typically online. And then I was able to, as I got into college, have the freedom to play that kind of stuff and explore that more. And by then, 3rd edition was out, and so that was fun. And I probably played the most as far as D&D goes of 3.5.
Yeah.
And then I've also played, probably, especially if you count one-shots, lots and lots of other systems, but like longer-term play, probably 10 or 20 other systems, whereas my co-author is much more, 60 to 100 plus.
Oh, wow.
And he used to be a rep for Paizo in the Oklahoma area.
Okay. Now, remind me, what's your co-author's name?
Nathan Lindy.
Nathan Libby. Thank you. I forget his name, although I see it on the book all the time.
Got doctorates in like physics and mathematics.
I like him more and more all the time.
Yeah.
So
he and I met
okay.
in college, but we were actually co-workers at a blood bank together. That's how we became friends.
Oh, okay. Interesting hobbies to have. I mean, you were there. I'm assuming you were like, giving blood, not withdrawing.
No. I was irradiating blood products. So I was exposing them to like gamma radiation for a
Oh,
specific purpose, which is basically at the time we switched over to X-ray eventually, but essentially what you were doing was hitting it with just enough radiation to prevent white cells from reproducing by budding, and not enough radiation to fry the red cells.
keep its utility, but keep it from. I'm assuming the white blood count creates rejection types of problems.
Sort of. So they'll do something called leukocyte reduction, which is just filtering out, dropping the blood through a filter to try to catch the white cells. That's done standard in most blood in the U.S. now. At the time, it was a separate category for particularly ill patients, but that's since become standard practice. Anyway, and then if they were really sick, you'd also irradiate it. Because a few of them will slip through the filter. And what happens is when you get a blood transfusion, the white cells correctly identify the new body as not theirs and try to kill it. And if you got shot or stabbed or something and you're otherwise healthy, that's not a problem. Your immune system will win, no issue. However, if you've got some kind of autoimmune disorder or you're really old or sickly or something, the invading cells might win. So
Right.
yeah.
Right. Okay. Makes sense. Gosh, I'm learning stuff already, and we haven't even gotten to talk about Horde Wars yet.
So as a result, I learned a little bit more about radiation.
That's good. No superpowers yet, though.
No.
I'm assuming. Okay. All right. I'm always holding out hope on that. Now
Don't
you
think that's the
mentioned.
method. Radiation tends to just be damaging.
I know. I hate reality. Reality is such a damper on my spirits. It'd be so much more interesting if my imagination held sway. It really would. And hear me out. It would be better for everybody. Santa Claus would be real. He would keep accurate lists.
He was. He's just been dead for a long time.
Yeah. He'd still be real. He'd be what we imagined as kids. Now you said you started out with AD&D. You had some friends that pulled you into that, and I'm assuming by around 2000 when it happened, you moved over to third edition. That would have placed you in the second edition era. So when you looked at that game, did you at any point get exposed to earlier editions like the Rule Cyclopedia, Beck Me versions?
Not at the time. I bought the Rule Cyclopedia years later and read it cover to cover while I was waiting to testify in court. Fortunately, I didn't wind up having to testify, but I had to wait for a long time. And then I enjoyed that, used it for reference and such for many years, and then we wound up giving it away last year as part of a sale for Horde Wars.
Okay.
That basically everyone who bought our book within a certain time span would be entered into a drawing, and one person would win the copy of the book.
That's excellent. That's excellent. So, over the years, most of your fantasy gaming has been D&D. You've said you've dabbled in many other systems.
Like I played a Rollmaster, for example.
Okay.
I played several different versions of West End Games stuff, the D6. That was more or less the same rule set across different genres. Zombie Santa, yes. Here to eat your brains and drop off presents. But I got to try out a bunch of different games. I played some D10 systems. I like some cyberpunk in theory, but my reading and experience of it has been that it is not the best designed mechanically, although it's a cool genre.
Okay. Interesting. Generally, I don't know Cyberpunk Red. I've heard they did some different things with the system. I
They
like
did. It's
Cyberpunk
better, I think,
2020.
but the
Oh,
the
okay.
real issue is that it's D10 based with both with critical failures on a 1. And
Yes.
when you by nature, that's not going to feel real over time. It'll feel exciting maybe or funny, but it won't
Uh,
feel real. Anyone who's
yeah.
competent at all at something isn't going to fail 10% of the time at the thing they're good at.
Yes.
The
Yeah.
the odds are too high.
Understood. Understood. And that's definitely one of those things. They use the same system for Mechton, and the exploding dice, tens go up, ones go down. Really does work against you eventually, because
Yeah.
the classic Gundam situation where the star of the show is just demolishing mech after mech after mech, all the little minions. Yeah. In Mechton, eventually one of those minions is going to blow your mech out right out from under you, and there's nothing you can do to stop it. It shatters the genre, you know.
It does. It does. And so to me, I prefer something with a little bit more tactical depth, and also where there I actually don't mind critical failure in D&D on a D20, though I think
It's
that's still too
5%.
high, but
Yes.
it's closer to reality. Um, what we used to do, and this was a homebrew thing, is we ran with critical failure on a 1 in a third edition group, and but if you did roll a 1, we'd roll the D20 again to see how severe the failure was. Basically, on a 1, then another 1, so 1 in 400 odds, then
Yeah.
you'd basically like shoot yourself in the face. Like it would be
Okay.
devastatingly bad. Or you just break your sword or whatever it might be.
Okay.
Whereas if you
Right.
rolled like a 10 to 20, it'd be like, yeah, you failed, but nothing really happened.
Okay.
Um,
Yeah.
we had one that the game master narrated where the arrow went around the world and shot the guy in the back just because it was funny. Because it was a 1 and then another 1. And we're like, yep, shot yourself in the back. Well, that's not possible. The arrow went that way. He's like, no problem. It went around the planet and hit you.
Speaking of silliness, Ultra says he ran a Shadow Dark Xmas one shot called The Tomb of St. Nicholas. Got to write that one up. And Random Encounter Show is here. Death Stalker 5. Glad to see you, sir. Thanks for coming by.
So, but yeah, hopefully that answered your question. I
Absolutely, it did. You got started in AD&D, moved on to D&D. You have dabbled in other systems. I have minimal experience with Rollmaster and MERP from earlier
Yeah.
years, and I find those interests. Of course, like the critical and fumble charts are like must have. If you can incorporate those into any D&D game, that's what you should do. That's the best part of either of those systems, hands down, in my opinion. I remember them exploding either way. It's a percentile system
Mhm.
where it explodes upwards on a 96 to 100 or something like that. And
it's more complicated than that.
of
The
course it is.
charts
It's Rollmaster.
reference other charts if that happens.
Oh, yeah. That's the part of Rollmaster I don't like.
Yeah, you go from the first chart for like your weapon to this other chart. Well, oh, I critted. What happens?
What happens on the crit chart? Okay, yeah, right. I think like the MERP was better. I like that sort of watered down Rollmaster that MERP was. That was some good stuff.
And but yeah, so I played a bunch of other stuff. Largely though with either friends going, "Hey, I want to run a campaign. Let's try this. Let's play this," or "Hey, let's do this one shot." But then also I got a lot of exposure playing at like conventions or private events as well. Like, group of friends, 6 to 20 people, maybe 30 people, going, "Hey, let's go off for the weekend and play games."
I like that.
Yeah,
Haven't
yeah.
had
Nate,
that happen in a long time, but yeah,
yeah.
that's
Nate and
many.
I try to go to those when we get invited, at least if we can make it work. So we've done that a number of times with our customers, assuming we can make the travel and stuff line up okay.
That's great. Now, let's talk about how your activities led into the development of Horde Wars? Where's the genesis there? How did Horde Wars get conceptualized and then brought into the world?
So originally we were working on a sci-fi hack for 5e D&D, a way
Okay.
to play science fiction, and
5e sci-fi hack leads to completely non D20
yes,
based fantasy game.
that's
I can
correct.
see it.
Yeah,
Right. Okay.
there's a
Please,
step in the middle
please
there, but
explain.
but because Dropship, the game we're working on now, was what we were originally working on. We were trying to make that as a 5th edition hack, and we realized that we either had to severely change what we wanted to do, or we needed to write our own game system. So we did, and we got a pretty good space combat system going. I spent a lot of time researching how other people did it, just so that we had some understanding of what was out there, and so that we could try to make a more realistic version, but still something that would play faster than a lot of the other ones out there. And so, anyway, when that was going on, one of the things we were struggling with was writing character abilities. And so, while Nate was gone one weekend, or 1 week, or maybe 2 weeks, for a trip of some kind, I wrote the core of Horde Wars as a thought exercise to think about how to write character abilities in a different genre. Nate came back. He liked it so much that we did some more work on it, wrote up some stat blocks for like some goblins, and then we did a playtest with our playtesters. They liked it so much, we switched to developing that first.
Wow. Wow. That's amazing. And so it's fundamentally the same system that you
Yeah,
had developed with Dropship. Can we talk a little bit about that? Because I've read the game book now. I've still got some sections to finish reading, but it really is so very simple. It's not a difficult system.
oh yeah, and you're dealing with like 11 pages of core rules in Horde Wars. Maybe 10 if you ignore the traps page.
I always ignore traps. I lose a lot of characters that way, but I always ignore them. Uh, Absolutely. The actual rules section, which is one of the things I found very enticing about the book, it. I felt like I was missing something. I was actually slow getting this to my table for solo because I thought for sure I'm missing something. There's a secret sauce in there, some
Yeah,
arcane formulas I need, flipping back
there
and forth. No, it's all right there, isn't
it's
it?
all right there. There are a few exceptions, and that's where you have genre-specific rules or narrow rules uses. For example, we have a whole chapter dedicated to sailing. If you're not sailing, you don't have to know those rules. Like,
Gosh, it almost makes sense when you describe it that way. So like rules that you're only going to need in certain situations get their own section, and they're not in there meddling up all the rules with like
yes,
tactical.
yes. The same is true for like domain play. If you want to build your own castle or rule your own barony or whatever it might be, that rule
Okay.
set is in its own chapter because you pretty much don't have to know that unless you'd like to use that rule set to procedurally generate a kingdom or world as you are adventuring. You can do that. The table is set up to let you do that. If you're like, yeah, this is a civilized area, let's roll for how big of a settlement there is, what kind of fortress is here, are there any special buildings, this sort of thing. You can do that. And so some of the players who have played with us on the Horde Wars server, Gilded, now moving to Discord, have actually seen me do that in live play and go, "Oh, that's a thing I can do." I'm like, "Yeah, that's why there's the dice in the side there."
Right. Yeah, it's there. And that's one of the things I really enjoy about any setting, any kind of game or most games is if they give some sort of generative process for creating the setting,
Yeah,
stuff on the fly. That's what I live for because I'm very much in the no prep world. Like,
yeah.
rather than statting up NPCs or drawing maps of towns or deciding what's in a town or whatever, I feel like there's many other things I could be doing to prep for a game effectively.
Yeah, and then we also really lean on random encounters or travel encounters, because this is a points of light setting. So whenever you're more than a day away from town, you are constantly at risk of danger until you get to another safe place, like a castle or some other settlement. And in those secure areas, that's the only place you can take a full day's rest. It is too exhausting and stressful in any other situation to actually recover health when you are on the road.
And I don't know. I really like that. There's something very old school about that mentality. The editions have evolved over the years where I keep getting what I think I wanted, and it turns out I don't want that at all. And one of the things that I miss is the fragility of the PCs.
Yeah, we tried to strike a very specific balance between random dude with knife can kill you at pretty much any moment, and also you are fairly powerful or can become fairly powerful, and that's challenging to do. But that's where we've hit. Like even for dropship, I now this is straining the system. I don't recommend doing this as a normal procedure, but I ran I think 140 enemies with guns against the players.
Whoa. Okay.
Because they rolled a really bad situation and decided to go in anyway. Uh, and then partway through decided to make a lot of noise, and so an entire company of enemy troops responded in addition to the ones that were already in the area, and they fought it out and they managed to win.
Wow.
That
Wow.
was
Yeah. So I imagine the players like talking to each other and it's like, he's bluffing. He's not going to put 140 guys on the board.
uh-huh.
Show you guys. So I definitely want to hear from the veterans of that engagement. That will be fun.
You can even talk with ones who did that, where I did something similar with a goblinoid and troll and ogre army. Some of the guys who I've met online came over to my place a couple months ago, and they played um, a session of Horde Wars and then one or two sessions of Dropship, depending on the player. So, like Brown Wizard Winston did this, Critical Dom did this, Arnie, if you've seen Arnman online, he did that.
Yeah.
And several others. I think I had 7 or 8 of them here.
Yeah, I do recall seeing posts about it at the time. You had a bunch of people drop in and almost like a mini convention.
Yeah, yeah. And so they fought. The initial scenario was like 150, 200 goblins against them. Now the enemy didn't deploy all of their forces in just the initial frontal assault. That's not normally what you would do. But they did fight, a good 80 to 100 at a time.
That's something else.
And that was, physically represented.
Yeah, the actual figures on the board, you mean?
Figures and dice, yeah.
Wow. So now that's one of the things I
Like,
haven't
for
run
100 normal goblins, I'm not going to do figures for that. I'll just use D6s.
Oh,
but
okay.
Whereas
Acceptable.
the troll and the ogre,
like,
yeah, there's the figures.
I won't have enough figures for that, but I got like pocket monsters and that kind of stuff that I could throw down on the table, or what have you.
I mean, pennies if you get stuck.
Now, I having played a variety of systems over the years, D&D being the most typical one, again, once you start getting to 10, 20, figures on the table, things start to get unmanageable. They slow down. One game I played that's an exception to that is Tunnels and Trolls, but that's a digression. What are the features of Horde Wars that make it possible to do that?
Yeah, so again, I don't recommend typically hundreds, but 20, 50, not a problem, generally speaking, unless you pick like what is classically a solo or a 2 of encounter. Like you shouldn't have them fight 20 dragons. They will die, and they should die. But even one, they'll probably die. Dragons are quite deadly.
Okay.
But the in general, for like more of the kind of classic semi-humanoid monsters like skeletons, zombies, some kind of dragon men. Ours are called Dracarans.
Okay.
Goblins, wights, this sort of thing. Though, yeah, you can fight large numbers. And one of the things that helps with that is that player characters, assuming that they have combat as a skill, tend to be able to make 2 or more attacks per turn that the player has. So that helps with being able to fight multiple opponents all by itself. A lot of the maneuvers that you'll see also help. The ability to block an incoming attack, maybe block for an ally, cast certain spells. Counter spell would be a good example, but a haste spell as well.
Okay.
Rapidly, while also being able to do something else like hurl a fireball or this sort of thing. That all helps. Turn order, the way we organize it, helps a lot in terms of speeding up gameplay. Shadow Dark, to my understanding, developed almost the identical initiative system independently, which is hilarious. I think I know why, because we tried 2 or 3 different we tried 3 or more different initiative systems before settling on the one that we have as the best, in that it ran the quickest and had the most variety of outcomes simultaneously.
Nice. That's one of the things. Definitely one of those. I've always been more of a side initiative person, particularly when it became a big group.
Yeah.
But doing it that way, which is whoever rolls the highest gets to go first, and then we just proceed around the table. I love it. It's simple. It's beautiful.
It is, and it is side-based, but with a variant, which is that some of you might go before the monster, some of you might go after the monster, and the monster could potentially defeat all of you. All of you could defeat the monster. There's a third possibility, effectively, and that varies more based on exactly who's seated where. And you can mess with it further by, if you're the game master, by having a friend come over to play a monster and having him sit among the players.
You sit across the table from me there. That way, in the middle of their turn, one of the.
I've done that, and as soon as the players understood what was going on, they switched seats.
I was about to ask. So, and it even allows a tactical layer of, like, if you don't like your order and initiative, just change seats and stuff.
Yeah.
And I was about to. So, what, do you lock them into that seat? Do you make?
Yeah, once initiative's been rolled. Yeah.
Okay. Can't move once the dice have been rolled. Do you allow it between rounds? Okay, we're done with this round and we're about to roll again. If you want,
they usually will figure out what they view as the optimal order. That is not always, they're not always right, but that the players will usually conspire together to try to get to win as often as possible.
Okay, good. That's been my experience with it. Is once you know that that's how things are going to go, they would tend to arrange themselves in that. Well, you for whatever reason always need to go first in the rotation, because if you succeed, what somebody else does isn't going to matter.
But occasionally, reverse turn order happens in Horde Wars. So a smart party will also put someone who's quick at the end.
Okay. So what are the conditions that cause it to Uno reverse like that?
A couple of things. There's actually a magic item that does it. It negates whatever just happened and then reverses the turn order. So that's
fiendish. I haven't found that one yet. That's going in the game.
Oh yeah, it's really fun as an item for the players who get it. However, you can screw it up. Depending on where you're sitting in the turn order, it might actually be a really bad idea to activate, because you can accidentally give the enemy an extra turn.
Right, like if you're first right after the monsters and then you activate it, it goes right back to the monsters' turn.
Yep.
Oh, I love it.
And so that helps. How our critical hits work helps, because you're critting on a 12, or for certain weapons an 11 or a 12 on a D12. So you've got almost double the odds of critting compared to D&D. That helps move things along. Also, that protection, the armor actually protects you, helps you fight multiple opponents. It actually gives you some protection from physical damage of different sorts.
Yes.
We base this on history usually. So, for example, the Gambison in real life was pretty good as far as protecting you from a piercing or a bludgeoning attack, but it was absolutely worthless against slashing. And one of the ways you can tell is pretty much the only time, other than like in a tournament type thing where they were deliberately not trying to hurt each other.
Uh-huh.
The only time that knights would fight each other with swords on purpose is if they were wearing gambesons.
Wow. And see
Otherwise,
now, not knowing the historical background, I naturally assumed, I thought that was weird looking at it. I was going, I would think that the piercing would just punch right through a gambeson, but
no,
that's not the case.
no, it's because cloth armor, if it's made right, is pretty good at like catching an arrow or catching a stab.
See, I wouldn't have thought that. I learned something else today. Chat, make a note of that. I've learned two things today. One of them
Yeah.
was biological.
So but we took some time to do some research on these things so that you'll find that generally speaking, our weapons and armor and stuff tend to be based on history.
Mm-hmm.
And the same for the setting. It is a medieval fantasy, but we borrow from medieval history because it's a medieval fantasy.
Yes, yeah. Well, and the more fantasy strays from history, the weaker it is. It seems to me. So like having magical societies that parallel modern society, as for instance the Harry Potters and Harry
Oh
Treasures
yeah.
of the world, it's kind of like those worlds tend to need a lot more propping up than your average fantasy world.
Yeah, like so you need stuff like a Catholic Church equivalent because you need a dominant monotheistic religion that's core to fantasy Europe. I mean, if you just think of it in terms of raw power, they own something like 10 to 20% of all the land in Europe. They were the dominant force
Yes.
compared to any one nation. And so if you're going to play in medieval Europe, you kind of need them to be there or an analog. The same is true for knightly orders of different kinds. Crusades. This was a pretty big deal for centuries. That you were trying to reclaim this lost land that's important to your religiously, right?
Right. Yes.
Um, the same is true for certain social things. Having feudalism is pretty important if you're going to be playing in medieval Europe, um, and so on. Also, having Vikings, they were kind of a pain in the butt for also centuries for most of Europe and had a huge impact actually as they waned. Not so much because of the raiding, but because of how they settled down and where. For example, the royal lines in France were pretty much all Viking descended. Um,
Right. Yeah. Like the Normans specifically.
yeah. And the same is true of the royal lines in England. And for that matter, they owned like a third of Italy for a while. Just
Just all over the place. Yeah, well, and
yeah.
and you can see where that constant threat of raiding really shaped the culture of the individual. All the towns that lived on those coasts, that's what they worried about on the day to day. It's a
Yes.
nice calm day until you see those sails on the horizon.
Yeah.
Now, one of the aspects, turning back to the Horde Wars, something I didn't expect is I rarely take to other people's settings so quickly, but with this one I did, and it was the simple mechanism of character creation and selecting languages. It was sort of like, okay, I'm a human, but it's not just common. I don't just speak common. I speak Mercian or Estron or something like that, right? So that immediately led me to flipping around the book, which immediately led me to thinking up a character concept for, okay, I want to be a delver, a deep delver, and I'm also going to be a blade master. What's my background story for that? And that was the character I mercilessly thrashed in the solo game on Sunday.
I read that. Yeah.
It was a ton of fun. I had a good time.
Good. Good. So we wanted to have different cultures. Having a common language isn't true of medieval Europe. If it was ever true in the past, it would have been the very distant past. Both
Like Tower of Babel.
both the Bible would say, right, which I believe, before the Tower of Babel would be one language. But evolutionary theory would basically assume the same idea because at some point language in their view must have developed.
Right.
And so at
Right.
some point, there must have just been one to then spread out. So the idea of a common language, it's not like that's foreign to the human experience or ideas. It's just not, that's not medieval. That's not
Correct.
genre appropriate.
Right. Yeah. Like to enforce that, because I have noodled that a bit myself, is there's some sort of magic in the background. The gods are making it that way on the earth, kind of thing. It really does break the world. And the fact that you've taken that extra bit and woven it into the character creation process really led me to delving into it, taking to it much more quickly than I normally do in a game, where I can just kind of gloss that over. I don't need
Yeah.
to know that stuff, so it just doesn't register.
We also did a couple things, I hope you noticed, to help with that. And that it was pretty deliberate. So, for example, when you look at our setting, each of the nations is a 2-page spread.
Yes,
So you can actually look at all of the important information essentially for that country in one spot.
yes, wherever possible. And again, I know that from flipping back and forth between the Mercia and Eastron sections and coming, cobbling together the idea for the character I had.
Yeah. And then the other thing that we did is with the careers. Now you're playing 2 careers when you make a Horde Wars character. You're taking them and taking the starting abilities of both, and you're picking the starting gear from one of them.
Mhm.
But in so doing, you gain information about the game world. For example, if you're playing a Red Wizard Blade Master, you know things about what a Blade Master can do, because you can do it, and about what a Red Wizard can do, because you can do it. So you
Mhm.
go, oh, we're fighting an enemy Red Wizard. Well, at a minimum, I know he's got haste, fireball, and can probably cast some flares. Um,
Right.
or we're going to go fight a Blade Master. He's going to be able to block attacks or swing extra times. We need to be ready for that. And so even a player who's never played our game and simply can read their character sheet will get some information about the game world that they can tell the party.
And that's one of the beautiful aspects as well, is you have so many well defined careers for the characters that really do lead to different capabilities. Some people might mistakenly compare it with Warhammer careers from the original Warhammer Fantasy role playing, but it's really not that, because those don't give you wholly new capabilities. They define your stat bonuses to a degree and the skills you can take and stuff like that. But in Horde Wars, taking on these careers unlock distinct capabilities. Like you said, I was really excited about the Blade Dancer, pardon me. The
Blade
Blade
Master.
Master's ability to just, I use my maneuver to ignore that hit. Ha! You didn't hit me. Ha!
Yeah.
Take that. Love it. I love that. It didn't save my character, but I did use it.
Well, I think there might have been a couple things you could do, unless the rolls were just heavily against you in that particular matchup. One of which, of course, would be to, prior to fighting that guy, getting a black iron weapon.
Which does +1 damage to characters?
+1 die of damage.
Oh, pardon me. Yes, even better.
Yeah. Yeah. So you'd have been doing potentially double damage per hit compared to what you were.
So I have to say, I didn't hit him in the exchange, so that wouldn't have saved me this time.
Yeah, that'll happen sometimes.
Okay.
And
So, what are things I could have done that would have made me take less damage from him?
well, for one, how often were you getting hit? Was it every attack?
I think he missed once. No, actually, I do believe he hit me every single attack, because it was only 2 rounds and he had 2 attacks each time.
Sure. Or were you using a dueling dagger?
I was not. I was using just a sword, and I did own a dagger, but I didn't think to wield it because I thought I would just use the extra attack. However, you remind me that with combat, you kind of get 2 attacks at a base, so
You get, yeah, with a particular weapon. So, for example, you could be wielding a rapier, say, in one hand, and a dueling dagger in the other. And when an enemy attacks you, the dueling dagger has an ability called defending that gives you a +1 bonus to defense. That just by wielding it in your offhand, you might have avoided a hit or two, simply by just by math. And then you could use your maneuver to block an incoming attack as well. And so you could have potentially had a round in which you took no hits, depending on what the exact rolls were, while still doing offense with, say, your sword.
Yeah, yeah. I do know out of the 4 attacks he threw at me, 2 of them were criticals.
Yep, those are
So,
important to block.
yeah, it was important to block him. That was the first one was like, oh, I should have saved the maneuver to block that one.
Yeah, the other one would be, of course, making sure that you have the right armor against that opponent. So if he's dealing slashing damage, you want to make sure you've got armor that protects you from slashing.
Well, and part of the story I cobbled together is I did shame the guy into changing into a Gambison like me. So we were equal footing on that ground. He legitimately whooped my butt. That's There's just no 2 ways around it. But
had you adjusted his defense to account for his change into the Gambison?
I did. According to the stat block, since I went with the Mercy and Heavy Infantry, I figured he's got the 8 defense for the Gambison, but he's still getting the +1 for the shield because they have the special ability for that. And I said, he's going to be using a sword. He's not going to come after me with blunt because he knows that's not going to hurt my Gambison so bad.
Of course. Yeah. But those are a couple of minor things. Making sure you had a black iron blade before fighting the person, making sure that you had armor protecting you from his attacks, and of course, wielding some kind of defending weapon, whether a dueling dagger or a shield will do the same thing.
Right. And I don't know if I had a dueling dagger per se. Hold on a second. I want to see this. This character sheet. I had a long knife. Oh, yes. It's a defending dagger. It does.
I had the wrong name. Yeah, long knife. Dueling dagger was the old name for it. Long knife is more accurate to genre, again.
Mangoosh.
Yeah. But yeah, you can. So any defending weapon at all, though, you'd be able to do that. And then, of course, you were fighting someone who, in a fair fight, is more powerful than you initially if you're a level 1 character. You just have more options. So using and exploiting those options would be the other thing to do to try to win. So, for example, I believe you had the ability, if I recall correctly, to get past an enemy armor. You gave up having that be effective by getting him to switch armors, but you could have been using that.
Right. So had I had to attack the disfavorable armor using that maneuver from the Delver side could get me through that protection. Aha. And that's the important thing. So not defense. It doesn't eliminate defense. It eliminates the protection that the armor gives you, which is half damage.
Yes. And then, of course, if you're going to be in a fight, especially a knife fight, you shouldn't be having a fair fight. You should be trying to ambush the person, not dueling them.
Well, come on, man! I gotta stick with my purpose. I'm a blade master.
Of course. But you're a young blade master, right? As far as your experience level, you're a level 1 blade master, and so you could take easily, probably 2 or 3 normal guards by yourself.
Okay.
Possibly 4 if you depending on how you moved around the battlefield. So Nate and I actually demonstrated this to a guy named Brian, who's one of our customers, but he lives 40, 50 miles away. So we actually went out and played with him a couple of times, and he's been at a convention or 2 that we've run the game at. Anyway, he wanted to practice game mastering Horde Wars, so Nate and I came and played in a game so that he could then go and show his friends. And he basically just tried to kill us. He just set more and more and more monsters until our characters died. But just me and Nate, with 2 level 1 characters, stacked up like 30 or 40 bodies of the opponents he was sending at us before he finally took us down. And but what we were doing was something that was recommended in real life by a guy who, on occasion, would get in what you might call a bar fight, except with swords, and where he would be fighting 3 to 5 guys with swords while he had a sword. And he wrote a book that, among other things, explained how to fight large numbers of opponents with blades, and talked about movement you would do on the battlefield to basically cause them to get in each other's way so they wouldn't all be able to come at you. And so how you'd kind of circle around the edge and force them to basically be chasing you constantly.
Running into each other. Yes.
Yeah. And
Wow.
utilizing the
Wow.
terrain and this kind of thing, and some dirty fighting tactics. Well, Nate and I actually did that type of stuff in the game, and it was effective.
That's brilliant. So one of the things I do appreciate about the game, although I haven't utilized it yet, but there does seem to be a subtly important tactical element to the game without bogging it down with a lot of rules and crunchy bits and measurements and stuff. Which has been that's the downfall of many games that are trying to be more simulationist. In my experience, is that they bog themselves down with rules. You hit a really great balance of being a light rule set, but still having a lot of tactical options on the table if you're willing to put out maps and miniatures.
Nice.
And similar to Savage Worlds, people who are experienced with Savage Worlds, there's a lot more tactical choice in that than you would think for such a light system. I rate Horde Wars at least as good in that aspect.
Well, good. I mean, I will say it's not a problem theater of the mind either. We used natural language for distances. So describing an enemy as next to you or adjacent to you, adjacent is a game term, and it does mean they're next to you. They're either in your combat space or right next to you in the next one, right? The same is true for they're close. They're close by. Yeah, they're within 6 spaces of you. We tried to use natural language as much as possible so that if you were narrating naturally, you will often accidentally use the correct words to describe the distance. And then the same is true for movement speeds. Generally speaking, there are a couple exceptions. Base movement for a player character on foot is a certain amount of the distance units. So it's not hard to track. Mm-hmm. Like, if you start out at short range from the enemy, that would mean you're 12 spaces away. That means if you're a normal human on foot and it's clear terrain, you're not, it's not hindering terrain like a swamp or something. You can go, I'm going to move towards him, and you can close half the distance. And if you use your action, you can get right next to him. So, or you could move half the distance now, do something else, and the next turn, close the distance if he hasn't moved. So the math essentially is designed for the normal experience to play pretty cleanly for theater of the mind as well.
Well, yeah, I didn't have to work with ranges very much, but my little bit of experience with it so far was completely theater of the mind, and that's how I tend to run things most of the time. It's actually pretty rare that I break out maps and figures for stuff these days. So I'm always glad when games can accommodate that as cleanly as possible.
Yeah, I mean I think it's a good thing. But I was you'd asked something about or mentioned something about when we were asking how I got into the game and how the rule set for Dropship compares to Horde Wars. I did want to mention. So the core rules are basically the same, the exception of how durable objects are treated, essentially because in a game where you have plasma weapons and high explosives, things aren't going to functionally be as durable as castle walls in a medieval setting.
Okay. I can see the point there, yeah.
But that's a genre-specific change. There's a couple of other genre-specific ones, like catching an enemy in a crossfire, which essentially is ranged flanking. We did not include that in Horde Wars deliberately, in part because 2 archers shooting at you from opposite directions does not make it easier for one of them to hit you. Not typically, anyway. Because unless you are alone in the middle of an open field, then it might. Maybe one of them.
Yeah. It doesn't seem like an apples to apples comparison as opposed to 2 fields of fire crossing in front of you.
Yeah. And so there's a couple minor things like that, but same rule set otherwise, same page length. I think we added 1 additional page of like essentially modern traps and security systems.
Oh, okay.
But the actual core rules are the same. However, we do have a separate chapter, which is the Starship rules, The rules themselves are 10 pages. And then there is an additional, what, one, two, three, four, five pages of what are essentially stripped down ship hulls. So if you wanted to build your own ships, this is the information that you would need to do that.
Nice.
Um, Now we have, I think, about 80 pre-made ships ready to go, so you can just get right into the game and play
Okay.
the various alien factions, as well as the humans. But if you wanted to design your own, or like if your characters got wealthy and stable enough to order a custom ship, we have the rules there for you to do that.
Nice. I really do like custom options whenever they're available. Do you have it constructed around like a point buy sort of system, or is it monetary based?
So a little of both. So the ships themselves can be modified. Like to some extent, like say you capture an enemy ship, or you've got your own vessel, and you maybe got a system damaged, or you captured components from an enemy ship you want to put into yours. That's a thing you can do, but typically you're going to have to return to a larger, friendly space station, go into dry dock, and have them actually do that, or the space
Yeah.
equivalent, right? Which is going to take a few weeks or a few months. Not a huge problem, but it is going to take you out of the action for a little bit while you're doing that. However, for building for the custom ships themselves, each ship, and as well as the generated stat blocks, has a certain amount of cargo capacity. Cargo space can be turned into other things, like you could modify it to turn it into extra fuel storage, or to store cryo tubes, or for various other things. But you've got a certain amount of cargo space in the vessel,
Makes sense.
based on the type of ship it is. Then you've got a base defense, hit points, base speed, a number of modules the ship can support, and a number of weapons. And modules are basically unique systems that are power intensive that you can add to the ship. So something like shields for your ship would be a
Okay.
module. And so some ships just don't have shields, or some of them use cheap ones. Others use ones that are a little more effective. Some of them will use different missile defense system options, and so on. But basically, any ship has from call it 0 to 6 weapon systems, and
Okay.
I don't think any have 0 modules. So call it 1 to 5 modules. And one of the cool things that a high level mechanic gets is the ability to put an extra module in a ship beyond what its power system would normally support.
Oh, I love that. So there's really aspects for improving the effectiveness of the ship and expanding stretching the frame to its limits, as it
Yeah,
were.
yeah.
Excellent, excellent. Good. Now, one of the things that I've wondered, you have talked at length in other shows about using the D12 as a foundation for the system instead of the D20.
Sure.
Do you have any experience with Advanced Hero Quest specifically, which is the more advanced version of the Hero Quest board game that came out I think it came out in 89, 90, 91, somewhere around there?
No, but I've played Hero Quest, the basic one, and I have a friend who is I would describe him as an obsessive collector. Uh,
That's a good descriptor.
so I am somewhat familiar with it. Not with that specific rule set though.
Okay.
I haven't played an advanced rule set for that. But no, our rule set was basically developed over time, and by reading a lot of material, and by and based on our own game mastering experience and player experience. Um, Probably the strongest influences, at least for me, because Nate and I were designing together, so he's got some other influences as well.
Mhm.
Uh, for him, I think Warhammer Fantasy would be one.
Okay.
Um, and the
There's
same,
a greater than zero chance that he played Advanced Hero Quest himself. And that's the thing. It's essentially the same Warhammer system that you would recognize: weapon skill, ballistic skill, strength and toughness, wounds, all that kind of stuff. Except it's a D12 based version of that. And in a similar way to what it stood out to me because as you described, the critical hits being a 12 and fumbles being a 1, they come up much more frequently, and the
Except we don't have
dynamics that
fumbles.
use them. What's that?
Except we don't have fumbles.
You don't have fumbles, right? This game did. So similar thing, but the critical hits happen a lot more often because of that 1 in 12. You would think it's almost twice as much, but it kind of feels more than that even.
Yeah, some of that has to do with kind of human nature. So as Nate and I were getting a little better at game design as we tried different iterations of this, and I've written other stuff in the past, and I've consulted on some other games, but the as we got better at it, we tried to play within the limits of human memory. Essentially, one of those is when you're trying to remember a new thing, you can usually remember 3 to 5 versions of it. For example, a grocery list. If your wife goes, "Hey, can you pick something up at the store?" You'll remember 3 to 5 things, and more than that, you will not remember. You will need to write it down, or she'll need to send you something because this is new information, and there's only so much you're going to recall.
Yeah.
This is
I know
also
that
why,
phenomenon. I know that phenomenon. My personal limit is 2. You give me a third item, and I'm going to forget.
But the same is true. It's why phone numbers and social security numbers are broken up the way they are. Because if it was just a single string of digits, you wouldn't remember it.
Remember it. No.
Yeah.
That is correct.
And so we tried to play around with this with character abilities, like for the careers, so you're not getting an overwhelming number at once. We tried to play around with this for skills and how you're gaining those skills. We tried to do this for languages and various other things. And the same thing for the Game Master. You'll notice that in general, there are a couple exceptions, but in general, of a given category of, say, beasts, like birds, there are only about 4 kinds of birds. It's not because there aren't other birds in the game world who might be dangerous. It's literally just, if we give you more than that, you won't make an intelligent decision because you won't have in your head all of the options.
Yes.
So there's no point to having more.
Yes. There's no point to having more because you just never use them.
Yes.
And I agree. Like that's why when it comes to stuff like that, if you had 8 options of birds, you'd make a D8 table out of it because you're never gonna remember half of them.
Right. And so there are some exceptions. Like we have named unique dragons that you're using, but that's not that hard. You can kind of check them off as you go if they're found or defeated in your game world. But but the same is true when we're dealing with the D12 and critting on a natural 12. Unlike the D20, the D12 is just frequent enough that players will act like they're going to crit or that they might crit. The D20, that's not the case. At least if you crit on a 20, it's not your brain doesn't feel that generally speaking doesn't feel that that's high enough odds to plan like you're going to crit or that you might crit. Whereas in playtesting, we found that players do plan with a D12. They'll go, "Oh, we could stun this thing. I'm going to get my weapon that stuns if I crit, and I'm gonna go and engage it." I might be able to punch through this thing's armor with my weapon, So because my weapon, if I crit, will punch through, and maybe I'm playing a deep delver, so I could punch through once anyway. So I'm going to set it up so that I'm trying to get through this guy's armor that everyone else is having trouble getting through. Whatever it might be, the odds of critting on the D12 are just enough that it feels like it will happen.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Yeah, you can count on it more. It's like, okay, I might not get it, but I got enough chance of getting it that I can rely on it in this situation, and we'll win if we get it.
Yeah.
I really do like that kind of tension because you again, like you said, dated, you can rely on it coming up consistently enough that you can plan around it, whereas stuff that requires, if you required a critical hit for an ability to go off in D&D, it's kind of the thing that never happens, or you end up using it on peons because I I couldn't score a natural 20 on the big bad guy, but his goblin minions, absolutely. I nailed 3 of them with natural 20s.
Right. Right. And by having 2 attacks, typically, sometimes 3, for the player characters on their turns, and then having higher odds of critting, I mean that really helps. And the swords, it's even more so because the swords have the impact
Yes.
property. So does the longbow, which means they crit on an 11 or a 12. So
11 or
1 in
12,
6
yeah.
times you're critting.
Yes.
And if you have 2 or 3 attacks and you fight something for like 3 rounds, you probably, on average, you're gonna crit.
Yes. Yeah, you're going to score a crit somewhere in there. So, and that is so appropriate too, because you think about it in average D&D, you're getting 1 attack per round, and so you're going to 20 rounds of combat, you'll see a critical hit in that. And this one, 2
Yeah.
rounds of combat, you're going to see a critical hit.
Oh, certainly for the table as a whole. Even if you don't, somebody will crit.
Yeah, somebody's going to see that. Well, and actually, with those odds, it's a pretty good chance it's going to happen in a single round.
Yes. And then the other thing is, this is partly for speed, because we tested save-based fireball and lightning bolt effects versus attack-based. Attack-based does play faster. I think there are reasons for this, one of which is, the main one probably is that you're only needing to roll 1 die and add it to like a modifier, and then you're just comparing it to flat numbers, as compared to rolling a bunch of saving throws where you're adding different modifiers typically for all the creatures in the area of, say,
Right.
fireball or lightning bolt. So an attack-based fireball or lightning bolt, like we do in D&D, like we do unlike D&D, like we do in Horde Wars, is faster. But the other thing that makes it faster is because it's an attack, you can crit. So it's faster in that sense as well.
Oh, that makes my eyes light up. Crit fireball! Oh,
Yes.
oh.
Yes, and if you have the immolate ability,
screw this blade master, I'm rolling up a wizard.
yeah, if you have the immolate ability, which is a limited use feature you can pick, whenever you would deal fire damage to a creature, I think you can do 3 extra dice, and it's like once a day a tier. You can have a fireball that is pretty powerful, but you can really focus it on one dude and be like, yeah, that guy, no, he is burning.
Oh, that's fantastic. That's fantastic. I love it. Okay, good. So I'm particularly filing that away because it leads into what I want to address in our last segment of the show here is that
Sure.
did you hear about Gobstein when I was doing that earlier in the year?
I did.
Okay, good.
I retweeted you. I was most aware of it because of Patty, actually.
Good, thank you, and I do appreciate the support. But the gist of it is, it's a charity stream, and all this year I've been racking my brain as to how we're going to do it again next year. Mistakes were made. I have different plans, but I am considering the next Gobstein 2 to be a Horde Wars event. And
sure, that'd
my
be great.
premise, okay, good. I thought you'd be down with the idea.
Yeah.
My premise, though, that I want to do is create a situation, a castle, small town, keep what have you. Gather all the people who are going to be participating, give them each a character, and say you have to defend this location from a horde of goblins coming your way.
Yeah.
No, here we go. And my plan is to have a couple weeks of just talking shit on the internet and sharing art and dunking on each other, leading up to a one stream event, of 4 hours max, and put these guys through the paces. Given the basic premise that I just laid out, what would your recommendations be for how to set up and design that scenario for Horde Wars?
Well, I would, unless you intend to offer them a map of the, say, castle in its entirety. If you do, that's fine. You can have, and depending on the player count, you can maybe have them cover the whole castle. But what I would do is have them cover one wall. Typically, for example, you could, their allied forces are covering the other areas, having them cover, say, the front wall with the gatehouse up to the corner towers, and that their job is to hold that section of the gate, or that section of the castle, while the rest is held essentially by NPCs. Partly because, in reality, most major attacks. Hey, Patty, just talking about you.
Yeah, we were just talking to speak of the leprechaun and he appears.
But
we're
partly
after
because the main attack in most sieges is going to be against the gates anyway.
Mm-hmm.
And the other attacks tend to be against corner towers. So you kind of get the majority of siege tactics just by having them on that kind of facing. And then it's much easier for you to display or explain to them because it's all relative to a single facing. Whereas if you're trying to do theater of the mind without a full map of the castle with like labels, it'll be very difficult for you and the players to communicate efficiently where they are exactly and where the enemy is relative to them.
Yes. For that very reason, my again, still in the mental planning stages, I was really considering something like Owlbear Rodeo, where we have an actual map to move things around on. So my initial thought was actually having a full map of the castle and explicitly making it a situation where the player characters are the only armed defenders.
Oh, I do that for convention.
It's very similar to the intro scenario that's in the Horde Wars book, that initial goblin invasion that you have.
A little bit. There's one in the setting in Caerwyn where there's an elven princess who is in a castle that has been cut off by a besieging goblin army, and the players are basically, their mission is to extract her. The problem is she doesn't want to go. The whole reason she's even there is to try to force the other elves to fight to rescue her and drive back the goblins.
Oh, I love it. And that's in the main book, the Horde Wars Advanced book.
Yeah.
Okay, kids, buy Horde Wars Advanced, and that way you too can be one of the cool kids. I might even invite you on my stream.
But that's you could do something like that. We also do convention play where basically we have a keep called Fireheart Keep in the book as well. And in this scenario, the Crusaders have left to go and attack or raid deep into Andalus, and the players are the force left to hold the keep. And the attack force has completely missed an army trying to come and take the keep. And so
somebody's getting written up after that.
Yeah. So the Drakarn army is now slamming into the keep, and the players are the only ones defending it. But because it's just a Crusader keep, it is easier to defend with a small force.
Okay.
Right. In the same way as certain medieval castles, you could defend with like 50 dudes, 19 dudes, somewhere in there. Wow. Whereas other castles, you'd need a larger force because of kind of how they were laid out. But there is an example of, I think it was 19 guys holding a castle for like 12 months, 6 months, something like that, against King John with an army of 4,000.
Wow.
And
it's like, why weren't all castles built like that afterwards? Was it like specific to that geography? What was the situation that made that possible even?
I mean, as far as the layout of the castle itself, I don't know, but they were typically built as much as you could to have minimal defenders. But also, I think John wasn't super popular. And so he couldn't probably afford to do what would be the most effective tactic, which is to simply order a mass rush. Because in that situation where you outnumber the enemy, 20-1, that's what you should do. You should attempt to just rush them and take them down. Right. But I think John wasn't popular enough to eat that many casualties.
Right. Yeah. Fortune favors the bold, and he was not that.
Yeah. And also, he was just kind of an idiot when it came to, like, making wise decisions with regard to ruling his country and remaining ruling it. He's the reason the Magna Carta is there because of how he behaved. He did stuff. I had a scenario where
so he was a net benefit for Western civilization, really.
I kind of virtuous change would have been better.
Virtuous change is always preferred, but we don't really get that, do we? We get the virtuous reaction to horrible depravity. I
Yeah.
wanted to call this out. Patty says Alyssa Hazel says she started work on the Horde Wars book.
Yes.
Let's talk about that. That's a great thing to address in the last few minutes here.
Yeah. So I got, like I said, I got about 20, 30 minutes left. So Alyssa is working on a short story collection that'll be essentially about the size of a novel for stories in the Horde Wars setting. So on the continent of Valentia, and so she started writing notes. I don't think she knows this yet, but I have already looked at the notes that she has in our shared drive.
I'll be sure to point her out to that and see if I can crank up the nervousness on her a little bit. She performs best under pressure.
Yeah. I think the work in earnest will start about 1 to 3 months after her child is born. But she's doing kind of like storyboarding, like concepts of what do I want this story to be about in this story. And we talked about having a few of them tie in together, in that some of the characters in some of the short stories might find themselves in other short stories if they survive.
Okay. And are there the prominent personalities and characters from the setting that will work their way into the stories?
That's up to Alyssa. She has access to the book. I hope she pulls in a few, but I hope she also comes up with some unique characters as well.
And the goal is for her she's not like collecting stories from other people. She's going to be writing.
She's writing.
Original. Brilliant. That's great.
And this is partly because I know I certainly enjoyed that with things like Dragonlance when I was younger, and a number of other books. I liked Joel Rosenberg, for example. His Guardians of the Flame series was pretty good.
Me too. Perennial favorite.
Yeah, I actually am just finishing rereading it.
I have not read it since high school. That's one of the things I should do.
It was the same for me. My parents asked me what I wanted for my birthday, and I was like, actually, I want this old book series. And so they picked up some used copies of each of the books, so I've been rereading them.
Yeah. Well, and that's one of the things. Most of our fiction selections are secondhand store kind of buys and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And I think that speaks to it. You never see Joel Rosenberg in the secondhand shelf at the bookstore. You see a ton of Stephen King. Stephen King there, more Stephen King than you can shake a stick at.
Yeah. So that's been really fun. So but I wanted other people to be able to have that kind of experience. Also, it is something we have had customers request. They're like, "Hey, we want to have some more lore," which is fine. I don't mind lore, but I would very much mind writing just a book of lore. That's not going to do much for your gaming. Whereas stories that incorporate lore or that reveal lore, that actually might do something for your gaming. That might inspire you to make related adventures.
Right. Who knows if she covers someplace that in greater detail in one of the stories, then people, that was such a cool location. I want to write a module for that area.
Yes.
Do you have mechanisms in place for third-party content or additional authors? Do you have a license for Horde Wars?
It's actually much. It's both more. It's simpler than that. Contact us. We essentially it's just explain what it is that you want to do, and then we can give you preliminary approval or not, like to go ahead with the project, and then prior to any publication or promises of publication. And if you've never made anything of that sort before, you might want to contact us a little more regularly for some help. But if you're an experienced game designer, say, contact us, let us know you want to do something for Horde Wars and what it is. And we'd give preliminary approval or not. Like if you want to make a porn book, no. Just going to be a no.
Darn! There's my idea.
And then once it's ready or near ready, send it to us, then we can give final approval. Basically, and we have some general guidelines about stuff that use, but it's essentially case by case approval with a pretty simple copyright disclaimer going, hey, we are using some material from Horde Wars Advanced that remains the property of Blackwall Games LLC. The remainder is copyright, me, author of this stuff.
Right. Of this work.
Yeah.
And do you have third-party people out there? Are there projects in the works?
There are projects in the works. So I've got a guy who's never written modules before, who is working on modules. He wants to do 3, and we've got him. He's doing playtesting on the Discord server now for the modules. We've gone back and forth with him a little more because, like I said, he hasn't made anything on his own previously. So giving him, some advice on how to set things up. And then another guy who I met in Texas is named Matt D'Amico. He contacted me a few months back about doing a Horde Wars module. And so I don't know how far along he is. I got to reach out to him soon. But his basic idea was to do a module out in eastern Brigmar, near where it borders the eastern lands, but on the opposite side of the mountains from where the rest of Brigmar. And so where they're kind of going out, and he wants to introduce a few additional types of monsters that would be, kind of, so that sounds really fun. He also wants to have a few unique stat blocks. He's thinking about like some boar or bear riding or dwarves, for example, and having like a dwarf berserker wrestler dude. Hey, man.
Black Lives Games, always glad to have those guys come on by.
But
make it Horde Wars Adventure is on Patty's list of things to do.
I hope he does. I mean, we'd love to have people do it. The main reason we're not doing a general license is because we're a small company, and at this point in our development, I don't think that it's a good idea. Basically, I don't want the first time someone bumps into Horde Wars it to be like the book of erotic fantasy. Like I don't want that. Or for that matter, I don't want it to be like a D12 modern hack. Not because I'm opposed to that, but we're actually working on that ourselves.
Right? Yeah. I want that. I just want it to be my book they see first, which is totally understandable. I think that's respectable. And, listening to some other people, Trevor Duvall is another one with the Broken Empire system. He said, no, I'm not doing that first. For at least the beginning, I want all the control to remain with me. I'm not opposed to hearing other people's ideas, but let's not go there just yet.
Yeah, and the kind of carrot we can offer is we own all of our own artwork, which is to say, in the event we were to approve your project, you can potentially have use of some art pieces that we have. We even have artwork that didn't make it in the book.
Okay.
And then we're continuing to build up that library as we're working on other games, sci-fi at the moment with Dropship. And so we've probably got, I don't know, I think 50 pieces of artwork in so far, 40 or 50.
Nice. Nice.
And so that's one of the things we can offer, to someone who's doing
well, and that's good too with the dropship stuff coming up too, because I've heard many of our indie creator friends have talked about it's pretty tough to find stock sci-fi art that's decent, that it still fits the theme and genre of what you're trying to do, but is in the open domain and easy to use. It can actually be a real
right.
So
right, and so ours wouldn't be open domain, but if you're working with us doing a project for Dropship, for example, you could potentially use some of our artwork, and we would be discussing that as part of that. Do I have printable minis? No, we do not sell minis. With an asterisk, we do sell minis secondhand through our website because when we can, Nate and I buy bulk, especially pre-painted miniatures, often directly from the manufacturer, sometimes from game stores that are looking to dump a product line. And the reason we do that is because when we go to conventions, people like to buy miniatures. It actually brings more people over to our table. We've experimented with this, and
Oh.
so our sales go up if we just have miniatures there. So it's not even necessarily that we have to make money off the miniatures. Just
You
having,
sell more books by having miniatures there.
yeah, yeah. And so,
Wow, it's like seems so obvious. I should have thought of that myself, but
and
put that in your back pocket.
and so as an experiment, we've got I think 8 lots still of like I'd have to check our website. Let me quick look. We have 8 lots of miniatures. I'm pretty sure still up on our website. And if anyone's mad about the photography, I blame our friend Colin. He's a good web designer and he's a better photographer than me. But none of us are professional photographers. Um,
Shame
so
on you, Colin. Improve. Get better.
Let's see. It is, yeah. So for right now on our website, for $35, you can get 3 large or huge models and 7 medium or small models as a lot. And occasionally those will go on sale for like 25. If you were to buy the same thing from Wizards of the Coast via WizKids and what have you,
Right.
you would wind up paying essentially $20, $22 in there for 4 miniatures. So we're offering you 10 for 35.
That's a sweet deal. And the sweetest part of that deal is no money goes to WotC in that exchange.
Yeah.
Except for whatever they can tax out of us somehow or another. I'm sure they make money from us breathing.
And as I said, occasionally that will go on sale for like 25. So when that happens, that essentially means that we make no money. We may even lose $1, but it's fine. Because again, the reason we're buying that in the first place is actually just to help with book sales at conventions.
Table dressing, yeah. I mean, you got to get the bring them in. Oh, look at this cute figure. Hey, while you're here, look at this book. You like that figure? You need the book to play with that figure.
Yeah. Yeah. Now we are doing. I customize miniatures. I'll do kit bashing. Sometimes make custom parts for our in-person demonstrations, both for Horde Wars and for Dropship. One of the reasons I do that is because I enjoy it, but the other is proof of concept. We want people to be able to play with miniatures, and so we want to know that there are miniatures out there that will work as a reasonable facsimile or that are exactly right for the game, and so that is the thing that we are doing.
Free beer. I don't think they're doing that at the website. There are
no.
legal obstacles.
Yeah, the convention centers, I think, would be kind of grumpy about us cutting into their profit margin.
That's true. Hey, you're not allowed to gouge the customers for alcoholic drinks. That's our job.
Yeah. But it is, it is something that I really enjoy. And so even if you look behind me, let me angle this up. You see those buildings on top of the shelf?
Uh-huh. Oh, I'm going to give you the close-up. There we go. Oh, yeah.
Those are to scale 28 millimeter buildings.
I recognize those buildings from your dropship post, don't I?
Yeah. And then the same below that, you'll also see, there's some additional buildings there as well. You'll also see those little blobs underneath them. That's actually a bunch of vehicles that are roughly in scale as well. And then we have a couple of smaller 3D printed ones that are up there. And then the same is, and so that's, we'll bring those, or other things to conventions or in other in-person ones. Like if I invite people here, or if we meet them for like we've had customers, as I mentioned before, invite us for like mini conventions where there's like 6 or 20 of them, and they're like, "Hey, we're all getting together. Would you guys come and run games for a day?"
That's brilliant. I love that. Do you have any upcoming events in the next few months that you need to notify people about?
There's one, but I'm not sure if we're going to be there yet. So there's one, which this is page 3 over in Philly, and the reason I'm not sure if we're going to be there is if we are, we'll be sharing a table with Rob from Pulp Hummock Press.
Right.
We got the chance to game with him at North Texas RPG Con, and we get along with him pretty good. And he invited us, but there are some computer website related issues for the host and for Rob, which he has been trying to fix for like 3 months, off and
Oh.
on. It has just been a nightmare to simply attempt to add Nate and I on with badges.
Oh,
Um,
wow. Okay.
and so
Okay.
if that gets fixed, we're planning to be there. If it does
All right.
not get fixed, we'll probably just go the next year.
Okay. Right. Right. You may be in attendance, or something like that. But and yeah, I'll put the word out because I do know at least one person that goes to Page personally. He goes to it every year, and he's a big fan of what they do. So I'll mention it to him. Maybe he
Cool.
can, I don't know if he can grease any wheels for you, but it never hurts to ask.
Yeah, and then the other thing is Nate and I are going to be looking at our general convention schedule sometime in the next 2 months. We want to know by January, basically,
Mhm.
for at least the first half of next year. But our goal is to hit at least 6 out of state conventions
All right.
next year. Um,
All
we'll
right. That's great.
We're already signed up for North Texas. We're planning to go to that one. There's 2 or 3 on the East Coast we're looking at. They're basically other than Page 3, which is kind of sort of towards there. There's a couple in New York State, and I think one in like Delaware that we're looking at.
Okay.
Um, and it's really just making sure that we can make those dates and commitments work well with our work schedules. Nate is, of course, a college professor, and I am a office administrator.
Mhm.
So we
Right.
have other responsibilities that we have to make sure are taken care of to be able to do that.
If only every gamer could make it their sole vocation, like their breadwinning thing. If
I I mean, this might sound like a lot, but if our sales went up to by about a factor of 10, we could probably do that.
both be full time at it, and
Yeah.
well, it sounds like a lot, but I
That
do understand where people might be shocked at exactly how little indie authors sell.
Well, I'll put it this way. I'd have to double check our books, but we've sold, call it, uh, $13,000 worth of Horde Wars Advance so far this year, and that might sound like a lot,
Right.
but production of Horde Wars Advance cost about 15,000.
Right.
So a lot of that's art costs. There's a little bit of copyright. There's some printing costs as well. That's several thousand typically,
Yes.
um, and so on. So this year, Lord willing, if we get enough sales for for the remaining 3 months, uh, we should break even, and then next year's actually profit on Horde Wars.
What is the actual profit, right? So
Yeah,
we're still filling in the hole to get
yeah,
it into the black, getting
yeah.
out of the red and into the black.
But as things go, like that's not bad. We're reasonably happy with that sales rate. But if we actually sold like 10 times that, oh yeah, no, one or both of us could be on this full time.
Well, here's hoping to it because one final thing note I wanted to close on is the leading into talk about Gilded and Discord, and I
Mhm.
wanted to open that up by saying, unlike many other indie games I've seen, this has a loyal and active small community in it, and I saw it actively in the Gilded. That's now coming over to the Discord, and well, I'm sure everybody knows at this point that Gilded is going to be closing up shop at the end of the year, so everybody's moving their activities back to Discord, and Horde Wars is no exception to that. Are you at this point encouraging people to join the Discord, or are you still reserving it for people who actually have bought the rule book?
Yeah, any customers are welcome to join the Discord server. Now, if you
I
are a
respect that.
non-customer and you want to come over and like sign up for like a one shot, play it, see if you like it, and then buy it or not, that's an option. But do understand that you will have extremely limited access to the Discord. And part of the reason for this is essentially um, there are some bad actors who will try to get on Discord and share things that no one wants to see. Uh, I've already had to ban at least one.
Yeah. I
Um,
self
but also,
promotion.
there's like bot invasions. Like there will be spam attempts at the various advertisements or attempts to scrape member information or this sort of thing. None of which we really want.
Yes. No
And
one
so,
wants that.
if you're a customer, what you'll have shown us is that you're willing to spend at least $7, uh, which would
Yep.
be a
To get
copy
the
of Horde
rules.
Wars Basic as a PDF.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So it's minimum investment, but and that was one of the things I was thrilled about. I ordered advance when you finally announced the release, and when it arrived, you also emailed me the code of hey, come and check out the Gildan, and I did. And within minutes of joining, I got invited to a game. There's stuff on the schedule. There's constantly events being planned. I know in the Discord right now, one of your players is play testing a module that he's written,
Yeah.
and he's got several events scheduled into the future, and stuff is being added all the time. So
Yeah. And we also do dropship playtests on there. I've got one or two scheduled now, planning to add a couple more when I have a better idea of my schedule in November. Because I have I might have some people come over in November. And if I do, I don't want to schedule
nice.
stuff online then.
Right.
Um,
Yes.
and then the same is true for, oh, I forgot. In like March, Nate and I are scheduled to go and run Horde Wars at like a church youth group, which is really cool.
Excellent.
Yeah, the
All
youth
right.
pastor reached out to us and was like, "Hey, would you guys be willing to come and run your game?" And when I talked to him, he basically explained that he really likes D&D, but he doesn't feel that that would be particularly acceptable to the congregation. And also, and probably more importantly, he doesn't feel that there's any guardrails preventing the kids from just playing unredeemably evil characters. Uh, and teenagers often find that funny. They will.
Yes.
I did that as a teenager. Like,
Yeah, I know. Yeah, the teenage years were my cringiest edge lord years.
and so he wanted a game where there weren't like where you couldn't just like play a warlock who's consulting with demons. Like,
Yeah,
you know,
yeah. Yeah, no, let's not make that. I don't want to play a game where that's a life goal or an end result,
right,
or
right.
that's on the bucket list. Is I sold my soul to Satan. No, that's
That's what the warlock is typically representing in D&D. That you're, and the same is true for some of the varieties of cleric and some of the other options. And so that was why he reached out essentially. And so we're planning to do that. Sounds really fun, and it's close enough we can drive down, and yeah.
good. That sounds like a great time. Hey, post pics and an after action report so we know what happened with it. We're over the allotted time you gave me, so I wanted to go ahead and give you Todd. People who want to learn more about Horde Wars, pick it up. Where can they find you?
Sure, they can find me on X, DM_Blackwall. You can also reach us through our website, blackwallgames.com. And of course, you can email us, hordewars@blackwallgames.com. You can also, if you don't catch that, if you go to our website, there's a spot to click to email us, and you can also, there's also another spot where it physically lists the email for you to read. So you should be able to reach us. We're also technically on Facebook. I say technically because I very rarely check it other than when for coordinating some events. Like we're scheduled to do that's another one. We're scheduled to do something called Cabin Con with a group of like 20 guys next April. Um,
Okay.
and so we're looking forward to that. But that's we coordinate with them through Facebook. But other than those kinds of things, I very rarely check it because in terms of this may not matter to you guys, but for the audience, this information. If you're working on RPG stuff, unless you are in the right Facebook groups with some older guys who are super into gaming, and that's the group you're in, Facebook is just garbage for advertising or for marketing your product.
Good to
It
know.
can be
Thank
good if you're in the right little group, not on the main chunk of Facebook, but in the right genre group.
Okay.
But if you're just starting out and you're not in those groups, Facebook's terrible. Um, YouTube, you can get reasonable returns. It kind of varies depending on the video and the amount of people watching.
Mhm.
But for example, I've been on a stream where we had like 100 people watched total, and we had maybe 5 or 6 associated sales. I've also been on a stream with like thousands who saw it and had virtually no sales relating to it.
Right.
It's kind of hit or miss. Um, I think the best ones that we've had have been probably with the Basic Expert and with Black Lodge Games, as far as like associated sales that we could kind of see. Um,
Nice.
but
Nice.
but as far as like X goes, it's a little harder to gauge now because of some of the changes under Musk. But roughly speaking, for every 1,000 views on a post, we typically get a sale.
That's not bad. That's not bad. And thinking back on it, if I recall correctly, I purchased Horde Wars after the Black Lodge Games stream that I saw you on. So once they had you on to talk about the game, I said, okay, I think I'm going to take the plunge here.
That's wonderful. Yeah, no, they because those guys have actually played the game, right? And that's they're like their review is based on experience. A friend of theirs, a guy I think of as a friend as well. Although I don't see him too often. Is a fellow named Spencer, one of our customers. I got to have dinner with those guys a few months back. Spencer introduced them to it because he'd bought the game and he really liked it. He's like, this is fun. He got to play it online, and so then he showed them to him to them kind of organically, and then they tried it and were like, oh, this is really fun actually.
Yeah, yeah, it's an epic fantasy done right because again, the epic part that makes it very cinematic is the fact that you can fight so many enemies at the same time and have a chance of winning. You get to be the kick-ass action hero that you always pictured, which older editions of D&D don't deliver that experience so much.
No, no, I was playing a white box with the Basic Expert month or so ago. The version of D&D that he's working on, basically.
Yes.
And as probably one of the worst characters, I got the most kills. It was really funny.
Yeah,
I was giving Victor crap about it. I wanted to make it a elf versus dwarf competition. It wasn't even close. I had like 8 kills. I think he had 1.
Only counts with 1. Doesn't matter that it was an elephant.
But it was pretty fun to try that out. I hadn't played that old of a style before, so that was pretty cool to see.
Well, and again, one of the things I'm not the first one to say it, but I say it quite often is that each system produces a unique kind of experience in terms of feel and style and aesthetic. And that's one of the things that I can extol the virtues of Horde Wars on is that it is a very different feeling experience than just sitting and playing D&D. Whereas,
Sure.
if I'm playing second edition D&D or Castles and Crusades, they're kind of almost interchangeable in terms of that feel at the table.
Yeah.
Horde Wars is a completely unique experience unto itself. I don't know that I have any other games that exactly match it. The closest one I could think of that I mentioned earlier was the Savage Worlds system, and I think this one is a little bit more robust mechanically speaking.
Yeah. Yeah, a lot of the guys who in the eastern part of our state who have started playing Horde Wars also enjoy Savage Worlds, and it's been interesting hearing their comments.
Mm-hmm.
Savage Worlds isn't something I prefer. I think Nate's played it a bit, but a lot of the Horde Wars customers, specifically in Eastern Michigan, are also big players for that.
I can see that. I imagine that people who are fans of Savage Worlds will take the Horde Wars really quickly. It's like I said, it has a similar feel in the sense that there's a lot of tactical possibilities when you get to moving miniatures around on the table. Yet it's not bloated with a lot of charts and rules and things like that.
Yeah. Well, thanks for having me.
You
And
bet.
if you have a second right after we're done, I don't know how long your outro is functionally, but if you have a second when we're done, I would love to set up a time to chat a little more about the Gobstein idea, I'd have like 5 minutes after this, and then I'll have to go.
Oh yeah, no problem. Well, I'm going to go ahead and click the end stream button here. There'll be an awkward pause while you're waiting for it to actually end. So during that segment, I usually say strike a pose.